Well, thanks for taking the time and clicking through. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Councillor Jonathan McColl. I'm the spokesperson for Educational Services and the Deputy Leader of Western Bartonshire Council. And the reason for this particular video blog, the first video blog that I've ever done, is because of the quite startling and astonishing reaction from certain quarters at the Council's boycott of Israeli goods. So, first of all, I'll put a full explanation of the Council's position. It's on the front page of the Council's website, but I'll copy it and put it below this. I'll put copies of all the motions and any texts that I refer to in this video blog. I'll put them in the blog underneath this video on my website at cllr.info. So what we're talking about here, we're talking about a boycott of goods that's been in place since, I think, January 2009. It is a boycott on any goods which are made or grown in Israel. The effect of the boycott is that the Council will not purchase any goods directly from Israel. We will not import products from Israel. It's as simple as that. Part of that, obviously, that's caused a furore is books. Part of that is books. We will not import books from Israel. But then we never have imported books from Israel. We have books by Jewish and Israeli authors in our libraries, which have been, we source them from our regular suppliers in Europe, America, United Kingdom. We've never ever bought books from Israel, so the effect on books, frankly, is nil. No books have been taken out, contrary to the ridiculous lies that were printed in the Scottish Sunday Express or Daily Express, I'm not sure which. Ridiculous lies. This council has not removed any books, and this council certainly has no plans to burn any books, as was said by that very, very stupid and very, very irresponsible journalist who, frankly, I hope is sacked and is never allowed to work again for printing such awful, awful things. And I can understand why the Jewish and wider Israeli community would be, upset at those suggestions. Frankly, that would be quite ridiculous and I believe unlawful. What we're talking about is a ban on the council importing stuff from Israel. It's as simple as that. So let's talk a little bit about the why. What was the motivation behind this? How did it come about? Well, it came about because an individual councillors can raise a motion on any subject. It doesn't have to be something that is ordinarily within the council's remit. And in this case, Councillor Jim Boland raised a motion calling on the council to boycott Israeli goods. As I said, copy of the motion will be linked below. The reason for this was actually news reports at the time from BBC, Associated Press, Reuters, CNN, Sky, you name it. The international media was coming out in absolute outrage and disgust at the tactics being used by the Israeli government and Israeli forces in defending the people of Israel. Something which the Israeli government have not only a right but a responsibility to do. Of course, they have to protect their people against the terrorists that are Hamas. Of course they do. But the fact that Hamas, quite despicably, they were using civilian buildings such as schools, hospitals, cafes, residential blocks. They were using these buildings to launch their attacks on Israel. I understand that they were also using people physically on the ground as human shields against Israeli retaliation. Quite despicable, disgusting people. But from my point of view, that doesn't mean that it's all right for Israel to then shoot through those people to get Hamas. It's not right that the Israeli government should blow up innocent civilians, men, women, children, indiscriminately, bomb hospitals, bomb schools, in order to retaliate against Hamas. That, you know, it's not right. Yes, you have a right to defend your people, but it doesn't give you a right to kill innocent people at the same time. And, you know, this council took the decision that we really think that the Israeli government should go back and look at what they're doing and how they're doing it. So a lot's been made of the fact that the council don't boycott goods from other countries, and that's perfectly true. We don't have a boycott on any other countries. Ordinarily, international relations isn't something that we get involved in. It's not, you know, a regular topic for discussion at council meetings. As you would imagine, as a local council, you know, we focus on things like providing education to citizens, providing social care services, you know, right down to you know, picking up the bins, refuse collection and recycling. That's what a local council's there to do. That's what our focus is. But individual members can bring motions to council on any topic that interests them. And obviously this issue was brought before council. The fact that, you know, no member has raised an issue with other countries to get a boycott at council doesn't mean that this council's, you know, specifically targeting Jewish people. And in fact, it's, you know, it's not a boycott of Jewish goods; it's a boycott of Israeli goods. In any case, I don't care whether you're an Israeli Jew, whether you're an Israeli Christian. I don't care whether you're a Buddhist, you're a Muslim. I don't care whether you consider yourself agnostic, atheist, or anything else. It was a protest. It's a protest at the, you know, it's a symbolic protest essentially at the methods of the Israeli government. That's what it's about. The fact that nobody's brought motions to council on other areas of particular interest in doesn't mean that the council's you know, anti-Semitic. It's just that I can't really put two and two together there. I don't really understand that argument. One woman that I spoke to, a very nice woman actually from Glasgow, I think she was, and she said something interesting that I hadn't, you know, thought of. And, you know, a lot of the people watching this, if you do have a Jewish background, perhaps this is something, you know, to think about. She said to me, she was a Jewish woman herself, and she said to me, hang on, I've got the quote written down somewhere. Hang on, I want to make sure I get this right. Yep. I've used it in reply to an email that I got. She said, talking about, you know, the Jewish community, she said, we are brought up in a culture of poor we us, as she put it, automatically thinking that the world is against us, and perhaps we should take stock of that before we draw conclusions about other people's motivations. And, you know, I think that's an interesting statement for somebody to make. If you know, understand a bit better following that conversation, understand a bit better the reaction that we've had from people, even after having explained what this is about, and it's not about burning books or anything ridiculous like that. You know, it gives me a better understanding of the mindset of the people that have been contacting us. And, you know, some of the contacts that we've had have been constructive. People have wanted to talk about it. They've had an opinion, which is quite right. Everybody's entitled to an opinion, but they put forward their opinion in a constructive way, never a constructive argument. But unfortunately, the vast majority of particularly emails that we've had, and also phone calls to the council switchboard that we've had, have quite frankly been abusive. They have been threatening. There have been threats of violence. Not just. There have been quite a lot of ill will wished against myself, other councillors and their families, but there have been, you know, specific threats made against our families and ourselves, you know. And while I can chalk that up partly to the misunderstanding of what the council's position was,